So fast forwarding, LeBron also gave his thoughts on basketball players' IQ and why some of your favorite stars don't actually elevate to a whole nother level. And we've seen this play out through the numerous years where we see guys like Carmelo Anthony not reach above a certain level, and we keep asking, the talent's there, he has the size advantage, why is it not translating to him getting consistent deep playoff runs? We've seen a young Paul George in 2013 eliminate Melo in the second round, and we also seen Melo along with Russell Westbrook, another NBA quote-unquote superstar that struggles with playoff success post Kevin Durant, as him and Melo were eliminated by a young rookie in Donovan Mitchell in the Utah Jazz in the playoffs. None of that added up. These guys were superstars, years marketed into the league, just making all-star appearance, winning individual awards, scoring titles, but yet they could not eliminate a young rookie in Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs. That's because the basketball IQ isn't there. And it's the same reason why Westbrook had lost to Damian Lillard in the playoffs while having Paul George and Carmelo Anthony in a much better bench unit in that OKC Thunder roster. So right here, you're definitely seeing why your favorite stars throughout the league don't actually elevate up to a different level. The higher up you go, there's a separation, and basketball IQ tends to be one of those. And another example I can give you is Amari Stoudemire. It's not until he played for the Knicks is when he started saying this is the first time in his career he's actually playing defense. And we've seen the results of that in Phoenix. Because when he was out for the whole season in 2005 and 2006, the Suns actually had one of their most efficient seasons, which they finished with a 61 win and 21 loss season, which matched up to their initial Steve Nash inaugurational season, where they caught the whole league by storm with their fast-paced style of play. So even though Amari Stoudemire was out for the whole 2005-2006 season, they were still able to match that regular season success without him. And that's because with Stoudemire at the time, all the points, dunks, rebounds, all those stats that he was putting up almost equated to the amount of points that he gave up on the other end. So it's almost like his 25 plus points per game was nullified by the opponents because the amount of defense or the lack of defense that he was playing on the other end. But there's other players I could put in the same category as far as stars lacking basketball IQ, but I wouldn't necessarily at the same time put them on this list. Guys like Trae Young, Damian Lillard, John Wall, Gilbert Arenas, and James Harden. I wouldn't say they lack the basketball IQ, but they are lacking, let's say, heart in the playoffs. They're lacking the heart to come back, or they're lacking the defensive tenacity. The higher up you go, especially when you're the last 4 to 6 teams in the NBA playoffs, your two-way game got to come in at some point. So I wouldn't necessarily say these guys are lacking basketball IQ, especially guys like James Harden, very smart player, but they tend to lack heart or either the defensive tenacity for me to put them on this list. But definitely on this list in modern times, I'll put Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, and Amari Stoudemire for sure.
Basketball IQ. I have described Nikola Jokic, I've described you as having supercomputers. Like your processing speed is a little different. I put James Harden in that category. I put Luka in that category. Yeah. There's a number of guys that have like a different processing speed. Some of this stuff, love of the game, that's a little bit of just desire, attitude, all that stuff. Competitive stamina, same thing. Can you develop basketball IQ at the highest level? You can get a little smarter as a player. Can you develop it as a
it's funny. When you brought up basketball IQ, the first thing that came to my mind, I started thinking right away. I was like, are you born with basketball IQ, or are you taught the game the right way, and now the basketball IQ clicks on?
Now this is where the players upcoming in the NBA draft kind of get caught in this Venus flytrap. When they first come into the NBA, sometimes they may get drafted into a team where they have bad culture and they just allow the star players to get the keys to the Ferrari off a rip and just drive the franchise into a place of no man's land. And we've seen this play out with the Houston Rockets, the way they gave Jalen Green the keys to do whatever he wants. He sort of brought that AAU play style to the Houston Rockets, which led him nowhere for 2 years. And we've seen players like Carmelo Anthony, instead of getting drafted to the Detroit Pistons, which would have helped him in his career because they would have locked him down into a system, especially with Larry Brown and the veteran players they had on that team like Rasheed Wallace, Chauncey Billups, and Rip Hamilton. They would have had him adopt a higher level of discipline when it comes to his approach to the game, which would have possibly led to Melo being more of a defensive player, which would have added on to his list of skill sets besides scoring. But instead, he went to the Nuggets, where they gave him the keys to the franchise off rip. He got his first coach fired, and eventually he bumps heads with George Karl as that coach tried to lock him down into being a more of a two-way player and bringing his game up to a level where it could benefit the whole team, not just him. But Melo, like many young draftees when they first come into the league, the culture that they get indoctrinated in, it's really hard to break the longer that they get more seasoned. It's almost like a child that was raised at a young age and just never got disciplined. And now all of a sudden at age 7, you want to apply some sort of discipline. It's just really going to be hard to break.
There's guys in the NBA that if you call a play or a coach draw a play to one side of the floor, they can't switch it in their head and do it and say, let's run it to the other side without the coach drawing it on the clipboard.
Yeah.
I've never understood that. And I don't know. I never understood that. So if I say we're running thumb down angle, we're running on the right side. So because I have a left-hand point guard, he wants to come middle to a strong hand. He has the ability to hit the pocket pass with the left hand, has the ability to throw ahead, he's lefty, and also has the ability to throw back on the shake. But if I say, hey, we run a thumb down angle on the left side because now the right-hand guard coming right, I've had teammates that's like, oh, what do you mean? Coaches always, in practice, we only ran it from this side.
Yeah.
I could flip a play when I was 8 years old. No matter if it was just pass and cut, no matter if it was, let's run flex, but let's start on the left side. No matter if it was just, let's DHO, driving kick. The last one, all right, now let's just drive the baseline, drive, drift. If the forward on the left side is looking at the ball, you can slot cut. I could do that. I was doing that stuff when I was like 8, 9 years old. And
once again, LeBron James is a basketball prodigy. I believe he's the first prodigy to enter into the league. Just completely built to be in the league, not just physically, but just mentally. He has it. He has the smarts. He has the adaptability. This guy has all the fucking necessary tools to just be a GOAT off rip. His success really evolves around small tweakings here and there and just plugging him into the right environment. It's almost like an automatic trip to the NBA Finals.
And my coaches would just be blown away, and I wouldn't know where it came from. I have no idea. So to get back to your question, I think I was born with a sports IQ, and it could have been any sport, but I just think basketball was the one that I chose, and maybe I was chosen to do that as well. Yeah. And I just took it to a whole, as I got older and your mind you start to live it, you start to want to be a part of it, you start watching. I started watching the games, when I was like 19 years old. When I first started, I was watching just a fan. I was just a fan of Michael Jordan and Anthony Penny Hardaway and Grant Hill and, those guys. I was just a fan. But then when I started playing the game, I actually started like studying what those guys were doing out on the floor and what teams were doing, how teams were guarding, how coaches were coaching, subbing patterns, time of possession.
Once again, LeBron right here showing that he's been a prodigy since day one. The only thing that needed to come in when he was 9 years old was the physical tools. And by the time he started going to high school, the physical tools just came in and the whole package just came together. And when I say LeBron James is one of the first NBA prodigies that we've seen, very similar to maybe a child that's a musical prodigy. Maybe he could play the piano or the cello a certain way. LeBron is like that for the NBA. And it doesn't mean that he's the GOAT off rip. It just means that he's born with the necessary tools, just a gift. He's quote unquote the gifted off rip. You can just see it. It just needs to be tailored. And once he's in the right environment, he's going to strive off rip. And when you compare him to the other GOATs of the league, guys like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, the storyline plays out for these guys very different. They didn't come into the league with the same raw tools that LeBron did. He wasn't really physically imposing at the age of 18. And also he had to develop his game with the quote unquote Mamba mentality. Every day you go in, you put in the work, and day by day you get past your competition. You see Allen Iverson being the first pick of that 96 draft. He was better than Kobe off rip. He had the more raw tools at the young age of 18, 19, 20, Kobe Bryant out of high school didn't really have necessarily those raw tools, but he had the mentality. So day in, day out, when Allen Iverson was in the club or just at the casinos or just partying the night before games, Kobe was in the gym working on his game. He could have been working on post-up moves for a whole summer. Then he could be working just on his footwork for a whole nother month. Kobe was that type of player. We seen Phil Jackson criticize him one offseason, mentioning his lack of post moves. Then he came back after that offseason, just posting guys up for the first 2 months of the season. Kobe was that persistent, and that same persistence over the years eventually had him performing and being a lot better player than Allen Iverson. And then if we look at guys like Michael Jordan, they came into the league, they had all the physical tools, but the basketball IQ wasn't as high until Phil Jackson took Michael Jordan's game, maybe knocked him down a few pegs of averaging maybe 5 to 6 points less per game, and trusting his teammates more and indoctrinating his game into the system, into the triangle system. That's when we see Michael Jordan had more success. Once again, I'm not saying LeBron is the GOAT off rip when he first came into the league, but understand he was a prodigy off rip. The basketball IQ was there, along with him being 18 years old, 6'8", and about 260 pounds. This guy was almost as big as some of the power forwards in the league, but at the same time, he was running just as fast as Allen Iverson, and at the same time, he had a young basketball mind that adapted fast as fuck. That's what I mean when I say he is one of the first true prodigies to enter into the NBA.
Dick Wall, my early coaches for the Roanoke Jaguars.
Yeah.
They taught me how to play. They taught me how to play with toughness. I get to JV, 8th grade, Chris Morris,
Yeah.
Billy Hicks. Then I go to Coach K at Duke.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to the NBA, I knew how to process and think the game. It wasn't new to me. It wasn't new to me to think the game.
You also knew it was bullshit and what was not bullshit.
Yes.
There's a lot of bullshit that gets taught in our league because our league has been feast off potential.
And LeBron couldn't say this any better. The league is definitely a feast off potential. That's why you see the NBA media at large praise guys like Tyrese Halliburton and Ben Simmons before his little meltdown against the Hawks. But yet you see them perplexed when they see guys like Jimmy Butler get to the NBA Finals 2 out of the last 3 years. And also guys like Jalen Brunson. The NBA media is very confused on how to just overall evaluate this guy because they don't see the potential in the athleticism. And that's where a lot of the NBA scouts kind of get stuck at, is looking at the athleticism, a lot of the tangibles that the player brings to the game, but they don't really look at the intangibles. That's how they got caught slipping with Ben Simmons, because in reality, the 76ers, when they had lost to the Toronto Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals, they should have stuck with Jimmy Butler and traded Ben Simmons. But yet the potential they saw in Ben Simmons because of his athleticism had the media sold, which in reality, that was the bullshit.